This is VOA Africa. Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory in for Hashtag Do You Want. It's Thursday, August the 29th. This is Africa 54. Botswana considers free antiretroviral treatment for migrants in an effort to combat HIV. In this year of return, Ghana welcomes the African diaspora to discover their roots. And South African Airways suspends its Washington to Dakar route. We'll have details on the potential economic implications. Well, tonight we begin in Southern Africa, where government officials in Botswana are set to make a big decision. Immigrants, including sex workers, could get a lifeline as the cabinet is due to decide on offering free antiretroviral treatment to foreigners. An estimated 30,000 migrants in Botswana are HIV positive. Mkondi Sidube reports from Gaborone.
Mary Banda is a 35-year-old HIV-positive sex worker from neighboring Zambia who cannot afford the life-prolonging antiretroviral drugs. Like many other sex workers living with HIV, she also cannot frequently travel back home to receive free treatment due to prohibitive transport costs. That's why she welcomes a proposal before the Botswana cabinet, which would provide free drugs to HIV-positive migrants.
If they can do that, that would be a good idea, because some of us are dying here. Maybe someone will be getting tablets way back home. When the tablets get finished, they don't have money to go back and take some tablets.
Botswana became the first country in the Southern African region to provide free ARV treatment to HIV-positive citizens. Now Botswana is considering free treatment for HIV-positive foreigners.
We must look at the overall bigger picture of ending AIDS and not leaving no one behind. On the other hand, we must also look at the prevailing policies on the ground. And if Cabinet must make a determination.
Banda says a number of their counterparts have succumbed to the disease due to lack of treatment.
Some they're buying, some they go back home. That's how some they end up being like in danger, because they won't be having the medication.
The U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, supports the move and has pledged to provide financial resources to the Botswana government.
It will help bring about epidemic control in this country. That is something that really needs to take place. We have discussed with various ministries, and it's now with the cabinet for their decision.
Tosh Berger, head of the sex workers organization Sisonke, says the Botswana government providing treatment to an estimated 1,500 foreign sex workers will help reduce infections.
If they are infected and they are not getting any help, and we are saying we want zero infection, then it means we are doing nothing.
The future of thousands of HIV-positive immigrants in Botswana now lies with the cabinet. A decision is expected before the country holds its general elections in October. Mkondi Sidube for VOA News, Gaborone.
Well, more than 200 migrants were rescued on Wednesday by the Spanish Coast Guard, according to rescue services. They were attempting to make the crossing from Africa to Spain. The rescue comes at a time when Spain is preparing for the arrival on a Spanish warship of 15 migrants from an Italian port following a prolonged standoff between Italian authorities and a Spanish-registered private rescue boat. The Coast Guard said Thursday the migrants were from sub-Saharan Africa were found in 3 rafts in the Alboran Sea between northeastern Morocco and southeastern Spain on Wednesday afternoon. They were taken to Almeria and Malaga. 2019 marks the 400th anniversary of the first enslaved Africans to be brought to what is now the United States, arriving in the English colony of Virginia. Ghana has dubbed the anniversary the Year of Return, and the country is welcoming the African diaspora with expedited visas and numerous events to discover the roots. Isha Sarai reports.
I don't specifically know exactly where I would have been from in Africa.
I've always assumed that I'm West African. The biannual PanaFest in Ghana celebrates the idea of Pan-Africanism. But this year, the festival takes on a new meaning as Ghana welcomes members of the African diaspora, many of whom don't know where their ancestors came from before being enslaved, to discover their roots.
For me, it's a trip of a lifetime. I've always fixated on Ghana as a place that I wanted to visit for a long time.
It's amazing to begin to reconnect with family, if you will, and seeing people live from all over the world.
His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, declared 2019 as the year of return for all African Americans and Africans in the diaspora.
When I look at Pan-Africanism, I look at it from the context of unity.
Gail Nakoi, who moved to Ghana from the U.S., heads Ghana's African American Association.
We are all part of the black race. We are all Africans, right? Whether you're an African in America, whether you're an African in Brazil, whether you're African in the Caribbean, if you have a high level of melanin in your skin, you are from Africa.
Nakoi has been working with Ghanaians and other Americans living in Ghana to organize a year of events commemorating African unity on the continent and among the diaspora. Many of the attendees say they were pleasantly surprised by how Accra has shattered their stereotypes of the African continent.
A lot of the sombers, a lot of the concepts, perceptions, even the African Americans, black folks in America think about Africa, right? So that it's all Sudan, it's all jungle, and which is not the case.
In addition to events in Ghana's capital, a big part of the year of return involves traveling to Cape Coast to see the notorious castle used in the transatlantic slave trade. Now a museum showcasing the plight of enslaved Africans before they were taken from the continent forever.
When they come to this place, it's like a pilgrimage because to many of them, they can only come here once in a lifetime. So when they come here, this place is very important to them, very emotional.
The sense of pilgrimage is felt by many visitors.
It's just really amazing to see, this is happening at this point in history. And I mean, for me, it's the full circle of things coming to where they belong. And I feel really a strong sense of belonging here.
Isha Sarai, VOA News, Accra.
Well, on this week, a delegation from the U.S. civil rights organization, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is in Ghana, visiting the sites of their ancestors. Stacey Knott has more from Accra.
It was a last-minute decision for Morandon Henry to come to Ghana. So far, the NAACP Board of Directors member has found his visit inspiring, emotional and rewarding. Henry is part of the group of almost 300 touring Ghana this week. On Thursday, some delegation members visited the home of W.E.B. Du Bois, the famous American writer and civil rights activist who moved to Ghana in his later years. Today, his home is a museum and his final resting place.
Now that I'm here right now at the W.E.B. Du Bois Center, was monumental because he was one of the founders of our organization, and just to come and see the work that him and his wife did when they came to Ghana was just monumental for me. It was emotional, but just to see it in person was life-changing for me.
The group has met with Ghana's president, visited significant cultural and historic sites, and taken part in business and labour forums. NAACP President Derek Johnson says the journey is about reconnection.
It's an opportunity for the NAACP, our member supporters, and African Americans to reconnect with Africa, to ensure that the African diaspora strengthens over time, but more importantly, for us to understand the journey that brought us to America.
The Year of Return campaign was launched by President Nana Akufo-Addo in Washington, D.C. in September 2018. So far, a number of high-profile visitors have come to Ghana, including members of the Congressional Black Caucus last month. Ghana hopes to attract 500,000 people for the Year of Return. Stacey Knott, reporting for VOA News, Accra.
Well, beginning September 1st, South African Airways is suspending its Washington to Dakar route, hitting hard the non-stop capacity between the U.S. and Senegal. By cutting Dakar, the airline increases its daily flights to Washington via Accra. Khalil Gay reports from Dakar.
South African Airways, SAA, one of Africa's leading airline companies taking Africa to the world and bringing the world to Africa, has decided to cut its Dakar-Washington leg, the last direct bridge linking this westernmost part of Africa to the United States of America. The news stunned many. Senegalese professor Alioune Sall, director and member of the board of trustees of the Pretoria-based African Futures Institute, is a regular traveler to the USA for research and meetings.
For me, it's sending a bad message that either Africa matter less or US matter less. And I don't think that this is the right message to be sent out.
Professor Sall stresses the importance of a strong and regular air link between Africa and the United States.
I think America, US, do have a prayer role to play in Africa for consolidation of development, for consolidation of democracy. Against all odds, we need to strengthen our relationship with the external world. And it's a pity that South Africa, which used to enable that, has decided to cut the number of its flights going outbound and particularly going to the States.
Renowned physician and cancer specialist Professor Abdul Aziz Kassé says he's one of those who were involved in advising the South African firm to open a West African route. As a scholar and cancer researcher, he was then traveling a lot back and forth to the USA and France from Senegal.
A lot of other people also who lose, a lot of time, a lot of opportunities to connect, a lot of joint ventures we could create between Africa and the United States. We have found oil in Dakar. We have found, gas in Dakar.
But what's the rationale behind this decision?
Dakar, as a hub, has not met the expectation. Let's face it, Dakar is a place which is quite expensive when it comes to ground operations compared to what's happening in other countries. Secondly, we have not been able to bring in Dakar passengers coming from the hinterland, what was supposed to be the landlocked country. We are not able to bring them to Dakar because for a while we didn't have any national carrier. As simple as that. We didn't have national carrier, while the expectation was that a national carrier would be bringing to Dakar all passengers from landlocked country and they would be taken to the States.
The Dakar International Airport Director and the Director of Civil Aviation have not responded to our requests for comment.
Senegal should be considered in the future, in the near future, as a big business in Africa.
South African Airways is calling it a route suspension. But given the total lack of information on when this suspension is going to be lifted, travelers to the USA from Senegal and the neighboring countries are living hard moments of disappointment. Khalil Gay for VOA News, Dakar, Senegal.
Well, we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 during the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, Nigerian musician, fashion designer, gospel singer, and actress, Patience Ozokwo.
Voices, we're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa,
around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower,
and change the rules.
It's time for Our Voices with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick, and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior,
and Orion Itangi Shaka.
It's time for Our Voices.
I am Shaka Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international calling talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
Could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. Mohammed Jafar lost his left hand earlier this year as part of a vigilante group protecting his neighborhood in the northern Nigerian town of Yola. Lately, though, life has taken a more positive turn since being fitted with a new 3D printed prosthetic arm. Many other amputees in this area also have access to prosthetics thanks to a team of developers at Yola's Innovation Hub. 3D printing reduces the cost of production significantly compared to more conventional prosthetics. The hub now has a list of 100 amputees waiting to be fitted. Next up, when a blind 13-year-old Matthew Schifrin built a Lego model by himself for the first time, he realized he needed to help other blind children do the same. His friend Lilia painstakingly wrote out Braille building instructions for him to follow. After she passed away in 2017, Matthew set up a website where blind people could access Braille building instructions for Lego model kits, legofortheblind.com. The Austrian Research Institute for Artificial Intelligence developed some AI software which translated the building instructions into text. These instructions can be read by Braille reader devices and translated into voice commands for smartphones. And finally, Ukraine's innovative Ochkis coffee eyewearing brand is getting customers to literally smell the coffee by making sunglasses out of coffee waste. Green industries already use coffee waste to produce furniture, cups, printing ink, and biofuel. But Ochkis is a pioneer in using it to make sunglasses, which smell of the freshly brewed beverage. The main advantage of sunglasses made of coffee grounds and flax glued by vegetable oil is that if disposed, they turn into fertilizer after 10 years. And that's what's trending today.
Well, to Kenya now. Kenya exported its first crude oil on Monday, with local leaders asking the government to stick to its commitment to share revenues from future shipments. Here's Joe Davis.
Celebrating Kenya's first crude oil export, President Uhuru Kenyatta joined other officials at Mombasa port on Monday to wave off a ship carrying 250,000 barrels of the stuff.
Kenya's grand march to oil and gas production and export has now begun. The flagging off of this maiden consignment represents a new dawn, not just for Kenya, but also for our region, and the beginning of a new era of greater prosperity for all Kenyans.
Although commercial production is years away, the discovery of oil has heightened expectations that citizens will benefit. In March, President Kenyatta signed into law a long-awaited petroleum bill, regulating oil exploration and production, and outlining how revenues will be shared between the government, local communities and companies. Under the law, 20% will be given to local authorities, 5% to communities living where the oil was found, and 75% to central government. London-based Tullow Oil estimates that Kenya's Turkana fields hold 560 million barrels of oil. It, along with its partners, have invested $2 billion in Kenya to date. Production is expected to hit 100,000 barrels per day from 2022.
Joe Davis of Reuters with that report. Well, as fires continue burning throughout the Amazon jungle, Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has begun accepting aid from the world governments. Voice of America spoke with Nestor Foster, Brazil's interim ambassador in Washington, about the Brazilian government's response to the crisis. His viewer is Christina Smith.
Brazil's interim ambassador to the United States, Nestor Foster, says that the Brazilian government and its president are working to control the more than 26,000 fires currently burning in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest.
He has deployed 43,000 troops from the Brazilian army to play a logistical role in. So let me just make it clear to you that this is a crisis. We're doing the best we can to fight the fires.
International observers have counted an unprecedented number of fires in the region.
We have an element, a climate element there of, dryness of the weather, higher temperatures. We also have a small small agricultures who use this as a technique. They burn, whatever vegetation is there to prepare the land to be planted.
The interim Brazilian diplomat says the government is working to protect the Amazon, but also has an obligation to provide economic development and opportunities for the more than 25 million people that lives in the Amazon region. But that doesn't help indigenous people like the Manoke tribe, who say the government is in effect setting the fires. Manuel Cabucci, a cacique in the deep Amazon, says the fires are threatening their way of life.
The whites, the human beings, will end this. They will destroy our lives, our planet, where we live. The government is not worried about this. The government wants to kill us. They do not want to know about the environment. They do not want to understand what is a dignified life. They just don't want to.
Amazon fires are also impacting neighboring countries such as Bolivia, where at least 10,000 square kilometers are on fire. Brazilian President Bolsonaro says he will attend a meeting of 7 of the 8 countries in the Amazon region mid-next week to discuss creating a common policy to confront the fires. Cristina Caicedo Smith, VOA News, Washington.
Well, Nigeria's Nollywood films have a large following in Africa and among Africans worldwide. The Nigerian film industry is credited for creating over 1 million jobs, making it the country's largest employer after agriculture. I'm joined now by Nollywood insider Patience Ozokwo, an award-winning actress, musician, and fashion designer. Ms. Ozokwo, welcome to Africa 54. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, first, if we go back to a little bit of history, you've been acting for quite a while. Mm-hmm. Did you ever foresee the film industry in Nigeria, Nollywood, growing to the extent, to the size that it has grown?
In fact, you need to know this, that when we started, it was just like doing what you liked to do. Yes. We didn't even know where we were going. And then suddenly we found ourselves where we are today.
Yes.
Hard work.
Hard work.
Real hard work. Yeah. Without anything, empty-handed.
And most of the times, actually, the films were done in kind of very simple ways. You know, the tapes and a few cameras and all that.
That wasn't much we knew then.
Yeah.
But things have really improved today. Yeah. And we have had people coming from overseas to introduce us to bigger equipment and better ones too. And we quickly grabbed it, and it's really lifting us to the next level.
We mentioned that it is now the second largest employer in Nigeria.
Right.
What jobs are these that Nigerians are able to get in the acting industry, other than acting, like yourself?
Quite a lot. Our finances have improved.
Yes.
And when that improves, the lifestyle improves too. And then we have gained recognition from all over the world. And actors and actresses now have the opportunity of talking and dining with the high and mighty, things that we never thought about.
Yes.
We're just doing what we enjoyed doing, and then it landed us somewhere, and we quickly stood up to it, and it's amazing.
You're one of the most recognized person, first for the longevity in the industry, but also, you know, you do a fine job. You're known as Mama G by some. In terms of the influence you have in society, you know, people always look to see the extent to which, through film, through recognition, through your work, how much are you participating in social issues, in issues that affect a common Nigerian?
In so many ways. On your own, you develop some on your own, and sometimes we're invited by government to see what we can do in that area of entertainment, create offices for us with the government where we can have a say and say, this is what you can do to help the industry move to another level. This is also what you can do to get our people enlightened and exposed to such equipment. The government used to send some of us abroad here to come learn how to handle cameras and things like that, you know, because acting actually, and then the things that are done behind camera, most of them are learned on the job.
Exactly.
Some of them were not very well educated, but they are able to manipulate all these big gadgets, and because they were sent to learn them.
So the government has helped. How about in terms of how you've been used, or you've at least offered yourself to work perhaps to help in issues through film, issues like we have had issues of child marriage, we have had issues of violence, or even ethnic differences.
Rape issues,
rape and all.
And some ethnic issues, like you said, you know, what they do to girls to, you know, to get them. So all those things, we have tried to handle them in our stories. That's why it really worked out, because the moment we started doing our own movies, telling our own stories by ourselves, it made sense. Because if I tell you my story, you might forget some. But when I tell the story by myself, it's down to earth. I get to the roots and bring the issues out the way they are, and then throw it out to the world.
While you're trying to tell the story, very quickly, do you ever get some sense of conflict, perhaps with some who think you're promoting certain negative things in society?
When I joined the industry, I had a boss. He's popularly known as Chief Zebodiah. He felt I was going to join them to expose Nigeria negative. I said, no, we have to expose these things for us to learn. And I cannot change it from outside. I needed to be inside so I can make the change. And it worked out for me. Now, he too is in. We are all doing the movies, telling the stories, and then trying to bring them, not just the way others do their movies, but the way it affects Nigeria, or Africa in general. That's why Nollywood has really bought over Africa, and every other country wants to be like Nollywood. Because we didn't want to be like anybody. We wanted to be Africans and pure Africa.
Indeed, you've done a fantastic job. I've watched you across the continent in many, many countries. They're actually watching Nollywood films. Thank you very much for joining us today here at Patience. Well, that's Miss Ozokwo, and Patience Ozokwo is a Nigerian award-winning actress, musician, and fashion designer. Well, and that's our show for today. Now, be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.